Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Yang, your online YouTube visa consultant. Now in this video, I would like to discuss with the comparison of how you should choose either an independent skill visa, which is under the general skill migration, or an employer sponsor visa, which has the most advantages. So what I wanted to discuss is that to put in the perspective with my experiences over the years, now what are the advantages of the independent skill and what are the advantage of the employer sponsor visa, and also what are the disadvantage of these visas. So to begin with, obviously there has been an enormous interest of people who around the world wanted to migrate to Australia. So the general migration purpose are obviously through a skill visa. Now skill visa actually has multiple streams. So obviously employment and working visa, obviously you need to have a skill, you need to have the qualification in order to be employed and sponsor, but also in another way you could possibly apply for independent skill migration. Now to start with, let's chat about the independent skill migration first. Now independent skill migration, obviously the advantage is that it solely rely on yourself. To start with, people actually come abroad and study in Australian university to be best, and with the recent changes, a lot of candidates actually choose to be studying in regional Australia, so in order to actually gain more points. So in our previous video, if you can find it for the general skill migrations, you will notice how the points are actually allocated to different classes or categories. So independent skill migration, with their own names, you'll notice that everything is independently dependent by yourself. So as long as your qualification is within the skill migration list, occupation list, and obviously you need to have a higher English fluency test scores, and also with the work experiences or whatever they accrue the scores that you can, then you'll be able to migrate to Australia independently without solely rely on anyone else. Now within this category, the visa, it does has subcategory coming out into what they call subclass 190, which is state sponsor, and then further downwards, last year in November 16th, Australian government had developed a new subclass 491, which is more of the promote of skilled migrants to stay and live and work in the regional area of Australia. So these are all categorized within the independent skill migration. So and each different level does provide different scores. Now obviously we've talked about the advantage, which is solely rely on you, but the disadvantage is because it's a DIY, so independent. There has been enormous number of people applying on the skill independent migration sector. That means with our experiences, and you may notice that if you are seeking this way or you have already put in your expression of interest, you'll notice 99.9% of applicants or candidates are pending on a delayed procedures because they simply have not enough placements for all the interest come in, so that you're in a queue. The queue is getting longer and longer and longer. And that is the problem and the disadvantage of independent skill migration. Okay, now let's talk about the other hand, employment sponsor, or generally called working visa. Now working visa, in that sense, under the policy and regulations, they don't really have a quota in control, although there's general numbers of applications provided every year, but they do not have a strict quota like how they control with this independent skill migrations. As long as you have an employer obviously employer needs to pass what they call the standard business sponsorship criteria, which I believe I had put it out last year with the criteria in our previous video. You can find that there. So as long as you meet the criteria and you get sponsored, you'll get the visa anyway. So for candidate who is seeking for working visa or employment sponsor visa, as long as you're confident enough that within your occupation you can always gain employment or work as required. For example, some specialized chef or cook in a different type of cuisine, it's very hard to identify with the local skilled personnel. Then obviously the rate of sponsorship and working is actually higher, and in this way you don't spend more than what you do with independent skill migration, because independent skill migration generally, well, 70% involve you need to come to Australia to study abroad in a university. Obviously there's going to be university fees and costs and living and all that kind of stuff. But employer sponsor, you get employed, you earn money, and while you're earning money and you accrue the time, obviously when you meet those criteria, you'll be able to transfer yourself into a permanent residency. So it's actually sounds very, very good as an offer. Now bear in mind, both of these applications or ways of migrations all require skill assessments, unless there are certain category of occupations within the employment sponsor area, but that's with another video that I'll go into depth there. Now the disadvantage of employment sponsor visa obviously you're seeing what had happened with the pandemic going around the world. The business in the hospitality sector, for example, they have stopped operation, obviously, and until a certain point in time, 1 month, 2 months, the business cannot sustain, they'll start cutting out their employees. So I've literally experienced a lot of these clients over the past 2 or 3 months, and that's the problem with the employment sponsor visa. So and if that's cut off, then you need to reinitiate, restart, recommence, and refine another new job and restart everything again. And plus there's a lot of legal works in between. There's employment contracts, there's the standard business sponsorship required to renew or redo, that's all the costs involved in there, and the complexity of these visas is actually more complicated than the independent skill migration visa. Now that's the general ideas of these two category of visas. My suggestion, my advice, well, the best thing is that the reason that I want to do these video and creating this channel is that to provide more information, to allow more viewers to educate yourself more with what category visa is available out there. So there is no certain way which one is better or which one is right. You should use your intuitive knowledge to pick and choose which one is more suitable for you. For instance, if you're so young and you are only about to get into university, there's no way for you to pick an employment sponsor visa. Obviously you'll pick independent skill migration visa because you're aging, you don't have any work experiences. But if you have been a very experienced whatever the occupation, are you accountant or lawyer or architect, and you have been working in the area for 5-10 years, probably picking an employer sponsor visa is much better option for you. But in both way you can juggle around, because picking a working visa, and once you find opportunity for an independent, you can still lodge them. Okay, so you can change in both hands. So everyone has a different scenario and background, country of origins. So information provided today, I believe, will be pretty helpful. But obviously there will be more question and query in regards to reflect back to whatever the background that you have. Anyway, that's for our video today. Should you have more queries or questions, feel free to leave a comment right below. And finally, I would like to invite you to come to our consider to subscribe to our channel, so once we have more updates, visa insights, you'll be the first one of getting all these information firsthand. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for next video. Goodbye.